We have no declarations of interest, so we'll move on to item 3, public participation. I'd like to welcome Brett Marshall, Director of the Air Force Museum, who's here to give us an update on the museum and its contributions to the community. Good to see you again, mate.
Including a free activity pass at the museum, which is get admission or a child's home. There you go on that. He Pākehā aho. Ko Brett Marshall tōku ingoa. I'm kia ora, Brett Marshall, the Director of the Air Force Museum of New Zealand, and thank you for the opportunity to present to you today. My reason for being here is to invite the Council to be a cornerstone supporter for our new exhibition hall that will be built to display two of our country's most iconic aircraft, the P3 Orion and the C-130 Hercules, that are being retired after over 50 years of service to our nation. I'll conclude my presentation with an invitation to Council to come to the museum where I can tell you more about the project, and also so you can see the P3 Orion up close. It is quite impressive. After it arrived from Woodburn last week. The C-130 is due to arrive before the beginning of 2025. Firstly though, a little bit of background about the museum. We are a hybrid in we are both an Air Force unit and we are a charitable trust. We opened in 1987, and in addition to being our Air Force's national museum, we are also very much focused on community support. Following the earthquakes, as many of you may know, the Museum Trust funded the building of the Tres Angelo Wing, which for over 6 years was used to house the collections of over 30 heritage organisations from the Canterbury region whose buildings had been destroyed during the earthquakes or badly damaged. Additionally, in partnerships with Venues Hotatahi, the museum has hosted over 1,150 events since 2013, such as the Van Gogh Alive exhibition, which had close to 50,000 attend. Now, these events have brought tens of millions of economic benefit into our city at a time when we desperately needed it following the initial closure of our town hall and our previous convention centre. There are other ways you may not be aware of that the museum supports as well. The police regularly use our tarmac for training. We are currently storing a number of containers on site for Canterbury Museum, as well as Antarctic Heritage Trust buildings, all at no charge. We're a strong supporter of the University of Canterbury engineering faculty, and every year their engineering department comes and tests their low emission and high performance vehicles that they enter into international competitions. This tarmac has also been used by Dawn Aerospace, Kia Aerospace and other advanced aviation companies in our growing support for the aerospace sector. And in June, we gave our facilities free for the Aotearoa Aerospace Academy's very first STEM event aimed at 7 to 17-year-olds, introducing our young people to the wonders of aerospace and rocketry. Now, this is all in addition to being a free museum. Our numbers are growing, currently over 150,000 per year, not to mention the over 5,000 school students that attend our education programs, nor the tens of thousands that every year come to events at the museum. For 2 of the last 3 years, we're very proud that we've been awarded a TripAdvisor Traveller's Choice Award given to the top 10% of attractions worldwide. And we continue to rank as one of Christchurch's top attractions. Now, all of this comes at zero cost to the ratepayer. And every cent the trust earns goes straight back into the museum to keep it free and to make it better. Not only that, but we're actually a significant ratepayer ourselves, contributing just under $400,000 a year, and this will increase to over $500,000 once the new exhibition hall is built. These aircraft that the exhibition will house also have a strong connection to our city, especially the C-130 Hercules. Now, we pride ourselves as an Antarctic gateway city. So ever since the Hercules was introduced into service in 1965, I didn't know whether to mention the mayor was 7, so I won't. It has come to our city every single year in support of the New Zealand Antarctic program. Additionally, after our tragic earthquakes, it was our C-130 Hercules that flew in the first search and rescue teams from outside as part of our nation's first response. So we now have the opportunity to have these amazing aircraft on display in our city, which will further increase tourism and add economic value. The interest is quite significant. The videos we posted last week of the Orion fuselage making its way via road from Woodburn to Christchurch was viewed by over 1 million people, one of those million. Yeah. And also received national television coverage. So we know there is significant interest and it is something that people will come to see. But before I close, I just want to acknowledge the reason or acknowledge those that the museum represents. On our roll of honour, there are over 4,600 names of New Zealanders who have died while serving within our Air Force or other air forces overseas. The average age is in their early 20s. It is because of their sacrifice and those of our men and women that serve today that I personally believe I have the opportunity to present to you today, and it's something that I do not take lightly. So in closing, I ask you for your support. I invite you to the museum where I can tell you more about this incredible project and allow you to see the P3 Orion up close. I'm happy to liaise with your staff to make that happen and happy to take any questions. Kia ora.
Thank you very much. We've got time for one question and I'm going to ask it. I was lucky enough when I was in Seattle to go to Boeing and have a look at those new Poseidons. Beautiful plane, absolutely beautiful. Now I heard the other day, is the Hercules when it comes here going to land out there?
That's a fantastic question, Your Worship. It is being considered, but I've been told I can't really say much about it because it's the Defence Force that will decide.
Sorry, I asked you.
Obviously, though, there were a number of regulations and that will be considered, but it has to be done obviously safely, and it has to make sure. We have 37 hectares. I'm actually ex-Air Force, ex-Hercules pilot, so I know what I would like to be doing. Yeah, but that decision won't be in my hands, but I know it is being considered, definitely.
Thank you very much. And I encourage anyone, anywhere, to go out to the Air Force Museum. It's a total credit to the city. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming in. Rightio. So now we have David Kelly, Chair of Beckenham Neighbourhood Association, who will speak on item 12, the South Library and Service Centre. Welcome.
Tēnā koutou, ko Dave Kelly how. I'm Dave Kelly. Good morning. I'm Chair of the Beckenham Neighbourhood Association, and I'm just here very briefly to speak to the South Library thing that's coming up soon. And really just 2 points. One is to stress the importance of this facility to the community, and the other is to thank the council for the involvement we've had so far in the process. I think the council gets criticised far too often and does an awful lot of good things. Like me to repeat it, yeah. So a very short point, and I've got a picture here of the South Library just to show that one of the key things about this is that it's much more than a library. It's really the hub of our area, and this is mentioned in the minutes for the community board, which you will be with the recommendation they're putting forward. So as well as the library as a service centre, meeting rooms, an education space, cafe, and there's a playground there for kids. And we've got the South Christchurch South Farmers Market working there now as well. And as part of the plans for the rebuild, there's proposals to rework the outside and get that outside space working much better. So very briefly, the Beckenham Neighbour Association incorporated in 1980. We've got about 138 financial members at the moment. And the BNA really think of the South Library as sort of being ours in a sense because this is long before my time, but we're heavily involved in the planning, which resulted in the South Library being built there and the design of it and so on, and that has been a major asset to the area. That's really the centre of the community. The other thing I'd like to say is that through the process of the planning, which has got to the point that now you have plans in front of you on a definite proposal, we've been involved in that all the way through, and I very much appreciate that the BNA and the community have been involved. We've been shown early design concepts and discussed things. We've had a look at meetings looking at all the reports. And one of the key things is that when this first was raised, I thought why does that building need replaced? It looks okay. And you may have thought the same walking past, but actually there's a 150-page report that we went through that shows that actually there's quite a bit of damage there, which is not obvious. The floor's tilted, there are services in the floor which are not working and so forth. And it's getting to the point where some of that stuff is going to need to be fixed. And I was very impressed with, and then my thought was, well, what? Not only the cost, what about the carbon footprint? And actually, the report considers all of that too. So I really recommend that. I think those are very thorough reports, and we found them very convincing, and they're available to you as well. So I hope you find those useful. I think they're very well done. And essentially, South Library was sort of last in the queue because the building is still functional, but with the services and the floor not working, that's sort of going to have to be fixed eventually. It's the last library to get done after the 2011 quakes, and 12 years of recovery. I'm glad nobody told us in 2010, 2011 it was going to take this long. And then the final point, which is in the minutes from the community board made available to you, is that really anything other than doing the rebuild now is going to involve patching up a building which is going to have to be replaced eventually. And so I think longer term the cost of everything else is bigger. It's a big number, but it's a really important asset. So thank you very much for the opportunity right through the whole process, which I think has been marvellous to date, and also for the chance to come along today. Kia ora.
Okay, thank you. Melanie.
When the library is rebuilt, can you tell me how important it is for the community to have another space to use during that time where it's not going to be functional, obviously, while it's being rebuilt?
Yeah, there will be transitional issues, and I gather there's discussions about having a temporary library. I mean, after the 2010 earthquakes, I was living up in Victoria Street, and the mobile bus library actually was our lifeline for a while. So I think that there is work to get some sort of temporary facilities going. Clearly, some of the things that are in the current library can't easily be done there. So like for meeting rooms, we're looking at perhaps using church facilities and so on for the B&A. And there's sort of workarounds, but I think everyone accepts that you can't make an omelette without breaking eggs. There will be a period when that rebuild is done.
Okay, good as gold. Thank you very much, David. Very good. Right, now I'd like to invite Don Gould to the table, who's going to talk along the similar vein, I think. Welcome, Don.
Morning, folks. I didn't bring our lovely presentation this morning because I wasn't originally going to speak to this one, though I have been following it for... Looking back through my emails last night, I've been following it since about 2022 because there's been engineers in this room that have questioned a variety of the numbers. Look, from my look at this, members, I actually agree with David behind me that we need to do something with this building. It needs sorting out. We've left it for 12 years, so don't get me wrong. My concern today, members, is I would urge you to look at pushing this paper back. I would urge you to have a look at the numbers more closely. When I've had a look at the 2021 LTP, this building was on the table at valued at about $5.5 million, roughly. Rebuild at about $9.5–10 million, roughly. In the same LTP document set from 2021, it says our rates rises will go up, are projected to go up by around 5.41%. I noticed I was sent an article by a resident the other day, the mayor, quoting a figure out there of 6.41%, 6.4% in the... As I've said at this table previously, my rates have gone up by 59%. We seem to be collecting that extra $1,000 to build some gold-plated palaces. Again, don't get me wrong, I'm not suggesting we shouldn't sort this library out and give these people a sensible facility, but that's the key word I've got for you members, is a sensible facility that's fiscally responsible. How many people remember the Whoronui pool debacle where we had some numbers added up which were underscoring that we should pull the damn thing down and not fix it? Certainly the numbers I've seen so far suggest to me that we should be investigating these a bit further. Page 70 of the Council's own library assets document from 2021, the same document set, suggests that this building has an occupancy rating of 600. If you look at that table, just at a glance, anyone with common sense can see a building at 2,600 square metres, 600 occupancy, the city library at 9,800 square metres roughly. These are just rough numbers, you can check them yourselves. I've already sent the numbers to some members, they're already floating around. It has an occupancy of 1,300. Hornby Library, I think it is 250 square metres roughly. It has a occupancy of 50. If we look at the maths on that, it would suggest that the Cashmere Library should be roughly 500, not 600. people that have been in the building suggest to me that the occupancy of that building really is about 150. Now, why that's relevant is because when we calculate the MBS ratings on these buildings, whether it be LI or IL, whichever way around it is, 2 or IL3, some of these buildings are out of whack. So something needs cleaning up, members. Not only does this library building need cleaning up, but we also need to do a bit of a run over the public-facing information the council's got out there, in my view, because everyone I speak to says, oh yes, we've looked on the publicly available information on the website and it just doesn't stack up. Now, I'm not saying that the library itself, the plan is bad or anything. I haven't looked into it deeply enough to know that. All I've looked at so far is I've got a bunch of other information that's contradicting some information, and it upsets members of the public when you tell them that the rates increase is 6.41%, and in reality, when I get the entire data set off the council, my rates are 59%, most of my community's around 15%, 5% of the entire city is more than 50% rate rise when I take out the difference between changes and growth. My point is that all these numbers are spinning around in the ether and they don't look quite right now. So I'd urge you to show a little bit of caution. There seems to be some hurry to get this thing done. I'm not quite sure why there's so much urgency, because I believe that the government funding is already in the bank, so it's not likely to be recalled as part of the election process. It just needs a bit more of a thorough look, like that Wharenui pool looked. I think that's my lot. I've used 5 minutes, that's enough. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Tim. Councillor Scandrett, sorry.
Thank you. Gold-plated palace. I mean, I don't think I could describe the plans for the South Library as a gold-plated palace. It's certainly no Taj Mahal. And your comment with regards to wanting it to, in a hurry, it's been, as the Beckenham neighbourhood representative said, the president said that it's been 12 years. I mean, it's not a hurry, and it's not a gold-plated palace, is it?
When its square meterage cost is more than the 7-storey Central City Library has cost us, when it is 3 times the price of the book value as stated 3 years ago, it does appear like it's gone a bit over. Councillor, I do take your point with regard to, as you say, it's been 12 years, but that's not my point. My point is not that we're in a hurry from that point. It's like we just started looking at this recently and decided to know we've done the review to say that it needs to come down, and now we seem to be in an urgent hurry to bring some very, very large numbers to the table that don't line up with the 2021 LTP, which was supposed to be a 10-year forecast, and already 2 years later, that number is out by 300%.
I have to say that there are changes in the building costs, and that's right across the board. So we are aware of that, but I'll leave it at that.
Absolutely agree with you again, Councillor. The commercial rate changes are not available easily on the internet. We did look at residential building last night when a few of us dove into that, because we knew that would be an obvious question, which are running at between 13 and 15%. Commercial, I accept, will be a little bit different, but we also know that some of those rates are softening now that we're through the COVID gravy train from the government. So now people are looking for a bit more work, so those prices are sharpening up. So certainly not 300% difference.
Councillor Johansson.
Oh yeah, thank you. Taking on board your comments around the cost, do you think council should consult with the public and its LTP before it approves the contract? Because do you have any concerns about us approving the contract ahead of the public consultation? Yes,
I do, because in fact it is stated as one of the recommendations that's on the table today that the $10 million particularly, if I read today's paper recommendations properly, it does look like it's suggesting via staff the recommendation is that it gets pushed through to the LTP. So in some respects, maybe my concern at the table isn't even warranted, because it looks like if you follow that part of the recommendation, it'll get some more eyeballs over it anyway.
Okay,
maybe we can get that clarified from staff, because I'm quite confused with the
We'll
way
talk
the
about that in
resolutions
item
are
12 when we get to it. Thank you. Thank you very much, Don. Thanks for coming in
You're welcome.
at such short notice.
You're welcome.
Okay, so